Hello, thank you for the opportunity to provide this video presentation titled Dementia Activism, Human Rights and Disability at your conference today, and thanks to Maria Bergs for enabling this opportunity. Thank you also to everyone who's taken the time out of very busy schedules to present or to attend. I wish you all a very successful conference. The World Health Organization estimates that 50 million people currently live with dementia. And Alzheimer's Disease International estimate there are another 35 million people without a formal diagnosis. Dementia is one of many conditions within a very large group of non-communicable diseases that until very recently has not been given the focus it deserves within this cohort. The World Health Organization states, dementia is the leading cause of disability and dependency in older persons, and also lists it as a condition causing cognitive disability. Although under the umbrella of mental health, dementia is not a mental health condition, even though some people with dementia will have mental illness, as anyone with any other disease or condition may have. Dementia is a neurocognitive disorder or condition. And yet the healthcare systems and governments are still viewing and managing dementia through a medicalised model rather than through the lens of disability. In my experience, dementia is the only condition where people are advised to go home and get their end-of-life affairs in order via aged care, rather than being advised to fight for their lives. I was diagnosed at the age of 49, a working mother of 2 teenage sons, also studying full-time at university. Being told to go home and prepare to die, including spending a day a month in aged care to get used to it, as if I was going to go from diagnosis to end stage overnight, was not only unpalatable, it was a breach of my human rights, and it set me up to fail. I ultimately trademarked this as prescribed disengagement, and 10 years later, it is still happening to most people I meet today with dementia. It is clearly a human rights issue. Some of you may not have a deep understanding of dementia, so I'll briefly discuss the condition. The Mayo Clinic defines dementia by saying dementia isn't a specific disease. Instead, dementia describes a group of symptoms affecting memory, thinking, and social abilities, severely enough to interfere with daily functioning. Although dementia often involves memory loss has different causes. So memory loss alone doesn't mean you have dementia. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of a progressive dementia in older adults, but there are many other causes of dementia. Dementia is not a normal part of ageing, as less than 50% of people aged 85 will have dementia. The type of dementia depends on the areas of the brain affected, and many types of symptoms will occur, not just memory loss. However, this perspective is purely from a medically biased lens, and there are other ways to define dementia. For example, I'd see dementia as a condition causing acquired and progressive cognitive and sensory disabilities. It's a condition with support focused on assets, not deficits, and reablement that people with dementia can and will maintain independence for much longer. Dr. Alan Power, Professor of Psychiatry in the USA, defines dementia simply as a shift in the way a person experiences the world around her or him. It has become clear we must move away from the medicalised view, including the medical model of care, and instead focus on dementia as a disability. While there are still no disease-modifying drugs available and a cure is unlikely even for one type of dementia by 2025, I believe globally we need a new way not only of viewing dementia but of managing it. Although dementia is a terminal disease, if we manage it as a chronic progressive condition in the same way we do for heart disease or diabetes, we may potentially slow down the progression of disease. More importantly, the quality of life and experience of dementia will be more positive for those of us who are diagnosed and for our families. There is an abundance of emerging evidence indicating a similar approach that will reduce the risk of dementia, slow the progression of symptoms, and perhaps even reverse early stage dementia. Everyone with dementia is a rights bearer under the United Nations, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and all states party to it are committed under international law to include persons with dementia in the Convention's implementation. However, there is limited evidence that this right is being realised. Many with dementia still face abuse and violations of their most basic human rights, which can range from a lack of access to health services to a culture of discrimination and even violence against those with the condition. Therefore, we must move towards a pathway of re-ablement, of rehabilitation and support for disabilities. This also better supports quality of life and independence for longer, reducing both the human and the economic costs of dementia to the person diagnosed and their families, and also to civil society and to governments. People with dementia everywhere must be supported to claim their rights as human beings with acquired disabilities. We are still being segregated in locked units and institutions. All of the symptoms of any type of dementia equate to acquired disabilities, not only a pathway to deficits and death. And that is why the number of dementia activists is rising, and is partly why Dementia Alliance International was launched. We are a global voice of dementia and a registered not-for-profit organisation. Our membership started with 8 people from 3 countries and is now represented with members in 47 countries around the world. DAI seeks to represent, support and educate others living with the disease, as well as the wider dementia and now the disability community, to strive to provide a unified voice of strength and support in the fight for our individual autonomy, for full inclusion and for an improved quality of life. Our other goal is to empower people to live with dementia, not only to die from it. We've become very active locally, nationally and globally as activists. We have made a global focus about campaigning for human rights and access to the CRPD with organisations such as the UN, the CRPD and the WHO. As an invited guest keynote speaker to the WHO First Ministerial Conference on Dementia in March 2015, I made the following 3 demands. 1, that we have a human rights to a more ethical pathway of care. 2, that we are treated with the same human rights as everyone else under the Disabilities Discrimination Acts and CRPD. And finally, 3, that research does not only focus on a cure, but also on care and risk reduction. Since then, there's been a snowball effect and human rights are being demanded by people like me all around the world. In fact, these 3 demands made at the WHO inspired a long-time disability expert and advocate, and also DAI member, and a colleague and friend of mine, Peter Mittler, to become actively involved in supporting Dementia Alliance International. Peter is an emeritus professor of special needs education at the University of Manchester. He's a former president of Inclusion International and was a UN consultant on disability in education. When able, Peter still consults with DAI and with many others on human rights and disability rights issues. We are deeply indebted to him for his expertise and work. The CRPD is relevant to persons with dementia because it defines persons with disabilities as including persons with disabilities include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual or sensory impairments, which in interaction with various barriers may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. Therefore, there is little doubt that persons with dementia are addressed by this definition and are hence intended beneficiaries of the Convention. Regardless of dementia falling within the definition of disability within domestic and international law, people with dementia continue to face a number of challenges to have their rights respected. Often, many of the stakeholders and policymakers do not even see the need for those of us advocating for our rights. This is partly due to the fact that the symptoms of dementia are often hidden or invisible disabilities until progression into later stage. The public misperception of people with dementia is that we are old, in late stage, immediately upon diagnosis, and unable to function well, if at all. It is certainly not yet seen as the norm for people with dementia to be living positively, although this is changing. The task of speaking out against people causing us harm is complicated and sometimes precluded by the fact that many of them are well-intentioned medical staff, service providers, or advocacy organisations, even close friends or family, who are also often our care partners, but who may be ignorant, unwilling, or unable to take the time to find out about our wishes and needs. Although we are grateful to the support of family and friends, we have sometimes been demonised for needing them. We have also been demonised for not needing them and for daring to live positively with dementia, and the misguided underestimations of our potential continue to create oppressive and humiliating barriers to our full engagement in society. Now that the WHO Global Action Plan on the Public Health Response to Dementia 2017 to 25 has been adopted, human rights must be included in all dementia services, as well as national dementia plans and policies. This not only means receiving a timely diagnosis, it does mean rehabilitation and disability support. Borrowed from the disability community, one of our mottos is also "Nothing about us without us." We are asking governments and civil society for human rights and dementia care, which includes us at every level and in every conversation, and includes proactive cognitive and physical disability rehabilitation, access to timely diagnosis, risk reduction and prevention strategies, and equal access to disability support at the time of diagnosis. Many are now advocating for the phasing out of all institutional care and the complete cessation of our segregation in locked dementia units, and that all healthcare staff are fully competent not only in dementia but also in disability. Finally, I look forward to the day when we no longer have to define anyone by disease or disability, and we are all treated equally. Thank you.